Welcome to the Justice in Heels podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Hayward, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for season 2. In this season, we focus on sharing stories and exploring strategies that empower those in the legal field to not just survive, but thrive in their careers. So, whether you're a seasoned lawyer, a fresh graduate navigating the legal landscape, or just someone curious about the world of law, Season 2 of this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration and support.
Cool.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Justice in Heels podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me and her name is Rorisang. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the listeners. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everyone. First of all, I know it's taken a long time for me to get on the podcast. I know we've been trying to sort out schedules since last year already. So I'm happy that we finally have found the time. And I'm a big fan as well of your work. I think you're doing amazing stuff on social media and social justice for women. And I've been following your stuff keenly. So well done to you. And thank you for inviting me on the podcast. So my name is Rorisang Mzozoyana. I am a lawyer by profession, and my focus area is property finance. However, I'm also very active on social media and on LinkedIn around mentoring junior lawyers. A lot of my content focuses on sort of helping junior lawyers navigate the treacherous world of the legal profession. And I also have like a newsletter, actually, that's launching on Monday, that focuses on lawyer well-being and mentoring junior lawyers and just providing resources to lawyers.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. And please, at the end of this podcast, please share how we can sign up for your newsletter as well.
Oh, I will.
Cool. So let's get started. So
Okay.
today we are discussing a very interesting topic, while interesting to me, which is personal branding when you are in the legal profession. So the reason why I wanted to discuss this topic specifically is because I've been seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and people messaging me on Facebook and on LinkedIn and even Instagram sometimes, asking like, how can I get clients? How can I put myself out there without looking like I am looking for attention, like without looking like I want to be a celebrity? And I mean, it all comes down to personal branding. And the reason why I wanted to invite Rory is because she does such an amazing job at actually creating and advertising her personal brand, especially on LinkedIn. So, firstly, Rory, can you tell us, what do you see as personal branding? Like, what does personal branding mean to you?
So there's sort of two ways of looking at personal branding. And the first one is personal branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So people are having a discussion and your name comes up. What do people say about you, and what are the thoughts that come to mind? And the other way I explain personal branding in a way that lawyers especially will understand is branding is nothing else but reputation. Lawyers understand what reputation is. And so branding is your reputation. That's all it is in simple terms.
100%. That's a very, very clever way of describing it. So tell us, how did you start your own personal brand? When did you start to realize that personal branding is such an important part?
So I started my journey on, okay, let me actually take a step back. So you have a personal brand, whether you like it or not. So I know a lot of people get intimidated by social media and this whole branding thing and being labeled a legal influencer, as you have rightly pointed out. And whether you like it or not, you have a personal brand. People have some thoughts about you. You have some sort of reputation. And I always say it's better for you to be active and craft your own reputation and brand and be at the forefront of crafting that, as opposed to letting the universe decide what your brand is, right? So that's the first thing. And then secondly, my journey actually started during COVID. So, I mean, I've been practicing law now for like 17 years. And I mean, throughout, we've been told by like law firms, you need to write an article, you need to like attend industry events and sort of, haphazardly trying to craft or build your brand in that way. So I've been doing it throughout my career, but I actually got serious about crafting my brand on social media during COVID. And the reason why was I felt so isolated. So I'd moved in-house from being in practice for like 12 years, and then I moved in-house. So at the beginning of COVID, I was working as in-house counsel at a bank. And the things I missed about practice was engaging with other lawyers, being part of a legal community, training juniors on legal concepts, which is something I really enjoy. I love teaching and I love training. And I missed that in my in-house job. And so I was like, you know what? It got even worse during COVID because I was so isolated. So I started my social media journey as a way of connecting with other lawyers while we're in isolation, and just sharing and talking about things I found interesting within the legal community, and also giving back and training juniors and teaching them the lessons I wish I had learned as a junior. And so that's how my social media sort of branding on social media started. And it was never a way of me like crafting a brand. I wasn't doing it to try and attract employers. I wasn't doing it to attract clients because I was in-house, so I didn't need to attract clients. But for me, it was part of plugging into the legal community because I felt so isolated.
Oh, that's amazing. So, and do you feel like it actually helped you to connect with like-minded people?
So much. Like I would never have, like, me being here and connecting with you is because of social media, right? And I've gotten to meet so many amazing lawyers and have made so many connections. And I'm so grateful that I decided to take that step and not let my fear of being on social media or my vulnerability stop me from doing it, because through that process, I've had so many amazing opportunities. I've gotten to meet so many amazing lawyers, case in point. And I've, plugged into the wider legal community in South Africa and internationally.
That's so great. Okay, so let's speak about a few of the misconceptions regarding personal branding. So the first one that comes to mind is a lot of people think when you have a personal brand, when you build your personal brand, this personal brand needs to appeal to literally everyone. Um, what do you think about that statement? Do you agree? Do you not agree?
I do not agree with it, because if you appeal to everyone, then you appeal to no one. And your highest value comes from specialization, especially at this point in time within the legal profession, when everyone's talking about how, there's AI that can spit out legal information. You have a lot of legal tech that is sort of taking out all of the grunt work that lawyers used to do and is doing it in a more efficient way. As lawyers, you can't afford to be a generalist. You definitely do need to be a specialist, and you need to zone in and define what your niche is. And I always say, in defining your niche, you need to be very specific. You can't call yourself, for example, you can't say you're a commercial lawyer, because commercial law can be commercial litigation, it can be corporate law, it can be banking and finance. And I always use banking and finance because that's my area of speciality. I always use it as an example. So within banking and finance, for example, you can move from saying you're a commercial lawyer and then define what niche of commercial law you're in. So are you in commercial litigation? Are you in M&A? Are you in corporate finance? Are you in banking and finance? And even within those niches, you need to even niche down even more. So if you're saying you're a banking and finance lawyer, what type of banking and finance law are you doing? Are you doing property finance? Are you doing leverage finance? Are you doing project finance? And then even within that niche, you need to niche down more. If you're doing property finance, are you focusing on South African clients, or are you focusing on international clients? And then even niche down even more. Do you act for borrowers or do you act for lenders? Like, there's always a way for you to specialize. And the more niche you are, the more expensive you are, right? Because it shows your expertise. So I think it's very important for lawyers to have a clear target market and a clear niche. And I understand that in South Africa, because there might not be a lot of work for a certain speciality, right? So even if you want to be a property finance lawyer, there aren't enough property finance deals in the market to justify you making your budget. that should not distract you from then still branding yourself as a property finance lawyer. You'll take the other work, you'll do the other work. It doesn't mean that if you brand yourself as a specific person, then you won't take other work, because the other type of work will come. But if you want to build a strong personal brand, you want to be seen as an expert in your field, then it's impossible for you to be a generalist and then be seen as a specialist or an expert or as someone, you know, who can charge the fees that you want to charge. So it's very important for lawyers to brand themselves and have a specific niche and a specific target audience. But that does not mean that they then won't accept other types of work. Yes, you will accept the other type of works, but the other types of work, but you need to be able to define your speciality and your niche.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point that you just made about niches. And I also want to add, even in, let's say, for example, you work primarily in family law and your speciality is child maintenance, for example. Yes, there are a million other people or 1,000 other people who also, do child maintenance. But I think the secret or the key to actually creating it as your niche is to find a way to do that differently. So just finding like that one thing that makes you stand out from the rest of the people who are actually also dealing with child maintenance and doing child maintenance mainly. So, and then, I mean, like personal branding, you can tell me if you agree or not, but I think it's something that not only attorneys use, but also law students. Like you can never start creating a personal brand too early in your career.
100%. I totally agree with you. I mean, I have high school students who are about to get into their LLB who are on LinkedIn, and like my mind is like blown. I'm like, I wish I'd started earlier, because it takes a long time to build a personal brand. And if you think about it, if a law student who is like in first year or just starting their LLB is already now starting on LinkedIn, trying to build their brand, reaching out to people like you and me who've already been in the industry for a long time, those people are not going to struggle to find articles. Those people are not going to struggle to find back work because they're already establishing their brand. And I know the one thing that a lot of people struggle with is they say, you know, I don't want to seem like an expert because I'm a first year or second year, or I've just finished my articles. I don't know anything. And they feel intimidated about sharing knowledge because they, you know, they have the imposter syndrome, thinking, I don't know enough about law to actually, you know, start building my brand and talking about it on social media. And for me, I always say, you know, the test is always, you need to know 10% more than the next person on a topic before you can start talking about it. And you don't need to position yourself as an expert, because faking it till you make it doesn't work, because you're going to be found out. But there's nothing wrong as couching your brand as being an enthusiast, right? So saying, letting the market know I am interested in family law, and that's the niche I want to go into. And literally every week you can be posting about, oh, I learned this, like the most basic fundamental thing about family law. As you're learning, just share that with the people behind you, because if you're a second year, first years don't know what you know, so you can be talking to that market. And if you're in third year, second years don't know what you know, and so you can be sharing your knowledge with that market. And as you progress in your career and you share your skills and insights with the people behind you, as they progress with you. And as their careers progress and they become more important, they become more valuable contacts. So, you know, it's not, branding yourself in social media doesn't need to be overwhelming. You don't need to feel like you're faking it. You just need to be honest about what you've learned, and we all know a lot more than other people. So if you literally are in first year of university, you can be sharing insights about how you applied for your LLB into university, the things you're learning day to day about your LLB. And so again, it's like, as you said, rightly so, it's never too early to start.
And I mean, if you don't want to write your own content, which is a great skill to develop, writing is very important in law. You can even share other people's content and then just add what you thought about it. So, for example, if you are interested in corporate law and you follow someone in corporate law, then you share what they already wrote, and then you just say, "Well, this was interesting. This is what I think about that." Boom, you made a post. It's like as easy as
100%.
that. Personal branding doesn't need to be hard.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So, what would your advice be to those who want to start a personal brand? Where can they start? Like, what is the most basic thing that they can do?
So, as I said, it doesn't need to be hard and it doesn't need to be overwhelming. So the one thing that people need to firstly understand is they need to be very self-aware and self-introspect in terms of what type of social media they're comfortable with sharing, right? So the way that you can build your personal brand as a lawyer is the traditional way, right? So writing long form articles that are going to appear in their rebus, which our clients, by the way, don't read. It's only lawyers who read those publications. So I do think in terms of the amount of time you would spend crafting an article, you could have already done like 10 social media posts. And I am biased towards social media because I think it provides you with a better return on investment in terms
I
of the amount
totally
of
agree.
time you spend and in terms of the reach that you get, right? So even if you go to a conference and you speak at a conference with like 400 people, you are only going to like have access to 400 people if you're the speaker. If you're just attending a conference, you won't talk to more than like 10 people there, right? But if you do a post, it can be seen by 10,000 people and it would take you less time. So there is the traditional way of personal branding, which is writing articles, attending conferences, etc. And you can also do that as part of your personal branding strategy. I'm not going to knock it 100% because there is still room for one-on-one interactions. But for me, if you're starting out, the best return on your investment in terms of time and money and reach is through social media. And currently, I think so, and the best platform, obviously, for lawyers currently is LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, you can still get a lot of organic reach, which means that your post is still going to be seen by a lot more people than in places like Facebook or Instagram, for example, which sort of has a different sort of mindset in mind. So when people go to Instagram, they're not going there to like be academic, right? So I think the best platform for lawyers currently is LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, it's just as you're saying, sharing other people's, again, so first of all, defining what your niche is. So what area of law? And you can't blast and pray when you go and you can't be sharing like family law and divorce law and bank and finance and M&A, because then, you're not crafting a brand. So the first step, even before you start defining your brand, is to decide what area of law you want to go into. And that will focus the type of posts that you put up on social media. And all of your posts need to be aligned with the brand that you're trying to build. So once you've defined your niche, then you can go into social media and on LinkedIn specifically and start posting. And as you're saying, you can share other people's information or other people's posts, but obviously add your own 2 cents worth. So don't just repost without adding insights. Literally, even if it's 1 or 2 sentences to say this is why you found it interesting, or put in a quote and, just a little bit of analysis to show that you've engaged with the content and you're thinking about it. That's a very good way to start. And then the other one can be to, share things that you've learned. So 10 things I've learned about, 3 tips on doing X, and then post it up on social media. And then just following a good way to also learn is to follow other people's posts who are in your niche and who are doing the sort of stuff that you want, and then just copy it. Obviously, you won't copy it verbatim, but you can see, the structure of people's posts. So if someone is doing a 10 things to know about, you can also then reformat that for 10 things to know that are relevant to you. And it's just about consistency, right? So consistently showing up. Don't like do 5 posts this week and then like ghost everyone on LinkedIn and then not go back again. And literally another very good way of building your brand is, even if you're not posting, just be visible on LinkedIn and comment on other people's posts, because people read the comments. And if you engage with people's comments, or engage with people's content, especially people in your niche. So if you want to get into family law, divorce law, you need to be following like Danielle on her posts and commenting on it and listening to her podcast, because then the people who go into the comments, I read comments. The people who read the comments will see your name coming up often, and they will then go onto your page to see, to follow you and your content. So there's multiple ways of building your brand on LinkedIn. I think it's important to stay engaged. I think it's important to comment on other people's posts, repost people's posts so that you're visible within the niche or the community you want to build, and then sharing people's content, and then slowly building up to sharing your own content. And just one last thing on, the strategy for sharing your content. You need to be self-aware. You don't need to show your face, right? And you build up to showing your face, because I think that's an issue for a lot of people. Like, they're too scared to show up. And LinkedIn is perfect for this, right? Because you can just write. That's why it's so great for lawyers, and LinkedIn prioritizes writing as opposed to videos and showing your face. So it's a very good platform if you're still finding your feet on social media branding and marketing, to just write, have a nice picture of yourself, and then just repost it. So that's it on my side.
That's like wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those tips. I think another thing to just add on what you said, yes, you don't need to actually show your face when you're posting on LinkedIn. That's fine. The only place that you need to show your face is your profile picture. And this is also something that I find quite interesting, because there are so many people on LinkedIn who write like amazing posts, and they comment and they interact with other people who are actually in the niche that they want to go into. But then the problem is, when you go onto that person's profile, you can't even see if they are studying, if they are a candidate attorney, if they are an attorney already, if they are still in school, because like the profile is not complete. So my advice is always make sure that your LinkedIn profile is as complete as possible. So make sure you have a profile picture. It doesn't have to be professionally taken. Just make sure that your face is clearly seen, like nice lighting. Make sure that you have in your headline what you are doing at the moment. If you are an aspiring candidate attorney, if you are a student, if you are still in high school planning on studying law, just make that very clear. Because I know a lot of employers also go onto LinkedIn when they are looking for candidate attorneys, and then they might see your profile and they might not know that you are looking for opportunities to be a candidate attorney, for example. And then, I mean, it's an opportunity missed.
100%. Like, optimizing your profile is the first starting point on LinkedIn. And literally, you just don't even need like a fancy photo. You just need to be able to stand on a clear background, wearing a nice suit with some makeup on if you're a lady, and just, get someone to take a nice picture. And again, optimizing your profile is like the basic win to be on LinkedIn. And you just, again, as you're saying, you need to say very quickly what you're about, what you're doing, again, linked to what your niche is, and then just have a nice photo.
Perfect. So then my very last question to you, Rorisang, is our personal brand is always also how we carry ourselves. So, for example, when meeting someone, shaking their hand traditionally, making eye contact, not being late. Do you have anything that any tips you want to share on how you can also like carry yourself in the real world?
100%. That's also a very good question. So, in as much as I'm an advocate for social media marketing or branding, and I think it's a very good place to start, obviously that needs to translate into the real world. So if, for example, you have this great branding on LinkedIn and people start reaching out to you and you're missing appointments, you're late for appointments, your work is not up to scratch, you're missing deadlines, then it will be all for naught, right? So in as much as, yes, you can craft your brand on social media, that needs to translate into real life, and that needs to translate into how you carry yourself in person, in terms of your work, in terms of your relationships with other people. So it's definitely critical for you to translate the brand that you're trying to build on social media into real life, and make sure that all the hard work that you do in crafting your brand on social media doesn't go to waste because you can't follow through in person, in terms of the quality of your work, in terms of your diligence, and in terms of how quickly you turn around stuff, and how you treat your clients, and just how you do your work. So it's very important to make sure that your personal relationships match the brand that you're trying to build on social media.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I had a lot of fun and I learned so much from you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. As I said, when we started, we've been trying to get this done for a while, and I'm also a big fan of your work. So I'm happy that I was able to come and we were able to do this.
Thank you. So how can our listeners reach you? How can we sign up for that wonderful newsletter?
Sure. So I'm Rorisang Mzozoyana. I'm on LinkedIn. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. And if you go into my bio, I've got a sign up link for my newsletter. I've got a sign up link for like my YouTube channel, and I've got a sign up link for all my previous podcasts. So all the information that you will need is on LinkedIn. Just go check out my bio, Rorisang Mzozoyana.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Justice in Heels podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with your friends on social media and tag us. As this podcast has a legal element, just a quick disclaimer that all views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the firms, companies, or brands that we are associated with. Until next time, goodbye.